Hello everyone and welcome to Clarity 16.4.0 Feature Supportability Training. I am Vib Mehrotra, and as part of this training module we will be talking about the enhancements to Vaia, which is the AI within Clarity. As part of Clarity 16.4.0, we have made enhancements to Vaia to have the following capability. You can now define AI agents within Clarity. You will have the ability to brand these AI agents based on your company requirement, and we've also enhanced the capability to control your LLM output token size along with the temperature. Right? With that, let's see all of these great enhancements to Vaia in our product. So with that, I'm going to go into Clarity 16.4.0. I am in just the main projectiles page, but let's start with the administrative section. For that, as you know, the configuration for Vaia is done in the modern UX administration. So I'm going to go to the administration side, and we still have our Vaia module available right there. Going inside, the first thing you will observe is we have multiple tabs. So there are two new tabs added to the Vaia administration. The first new tab is AI agents, and the second one is called branding. I'm going to go first to the AI models, which is the existing one. And in here, what you will observe is that the very first thing is that this layout is now using our common grid. So I have the option to do the save of the views, filter for the data, add columns as I want to, and so on. I can reorder these. So all of that is now available under the AI model section. Next, you'll see that there are two new columns that are there available in the AI models. I've included these columns in my grid, and that's called the max token size and temperature. Both of those are required. We've set the default value for the max token size to be max, which means that if you are using the any one of these specific models, you want to make sure that your max token size is set to whatever your AI subscription allows. All of these don't by default. For example, Gemini's the 65K is for enterprise, so if you don't have that setting, you want to lower this number, otherwise you will see some errors. The temperature, of course, controls how much flexibility AI has in terms of providing a response. We default these values to 0, which means it should be grounded to only the data that we are sharing as part of the Clarity AI agents. You are welcome to change this value to any higher number if you want to do so. Also, if you try to change this number to anything outside of the valid range, and the valid range is only between 0 and 1, then we will give you a warning error message, and we will reset the value back. Next, I am going to go into the branding area. Branding is new capability that allows you to basically brand the AI agents. This will allow you to give the AI within Clarity your own name. By default, we set the value to Vaia, but you can change this value to something else. Whatever name is configured here is what you will see under the administration, the tile or the module for AI that will be renamed, as well as everywhere that you will see the AI agent, you will, hovering over it, will see your agent name displayed there. All right, so let's go ahead and change this to my strategic advisor. So that is what I want my AI to be called in my Clarity instance. The next thing you'll observe is that there is a default icon. This is the same standard AI icon that everybody is accustomed to seeing across the different applications. we give you the capability to change this icon to something different. You can do so. Again, there are instructions as to what type of logo we will accept. You can change this logo by clicking on Upload New Logo. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to first pick this small logo, which is an animated logo. So yes, we do support animation. When I upload that logo, you will see that it gets replaced. And if you're able to see that the animation is working, so it is a GIF file with the animation in there. So it's the AI that's waving at me. Um, if I don't want to use that, I can just delete it and it'll reset it back to the one that is default out of the box. I can go ahead and upload another one, and maybe at this point I'll pick this Vaia one. And now I have the new one uploaded to my branding for the AI. I called it my strategic advisor. So let's go back under administration. And because it's still all the information is cached, I am going to just refresh the page so that it can pick up the new information. And now you can see that under administration, the AI module tile is now renamed to whatever I called it. And inside my branding is set, which we will see this as we go along in our demo. Right, the next I'm going to go into the enabled AI. This is the existing tab that always existed. This is where you would define your Gen AI actions in Clarity, which allows you to do the generation of content, review of content, revision of existing content, summarization of status report, as well as summarization of your roadmap. All of that is still under Enable AI for this release. In 16.4.1, we are targeting to combine Enable AI with AI agents. But in 16.4.0, you will continue to see Enable AI. In here, you would see that I have now, the first thing you'll observe is that I have two new columns. There is a column for name and a column for ID. The next thing you'll observe is that instead of having my type as the navigatable link to go in and configure my AI actions, we now have the name as a configuration that I can click on that to essentially go ahead and configure my AI action, the Gen AI action. And I'm just going to open this one. This is again standard default out of the box, and this is just all the default configuration that is there. But to show you one that I upgraded, what happens to all my existing AI agents after I upgrade. To that, I'm going to go to another instance, and here under Enable AI, I had previously defined several AI actions. We will retain all of that. Everything will remain as is, but the two new columns will be added. And what we will do is we will, for the roadmap summary and the status report summary, we basically give the name as generate roadmap summary and generate status summary. For all the other generate contents, we basically take the same action and put that as the name of that specific agent. We also auto-populate the ID for the existing AI actions to be CC followed by a number. You do have the option to rename any one of these. So if I want this if I did not want this to be just called generate content, I can go ahead and click on the pen icon and edit the name, and I can say generate content idea description. And that information is there. So you have the option to edit the name of any one of these old actions. If you create a new one, then you have the option to define your own name. I can pick let's just pick the idea, and we auto generate the ID, which is in the format of CC followed by the next number. So that so the name and ID are required, and this is going to be the new format that you will see starting 16.4.0. But the Gen AI functionality will continue to be the same as it does today, and for this demo I will not cover that. Right, next let's go into our AI agents, the main enhancement that we have done as part of this release. Coming in here, by default you would see the layout and all of these, it'll be a blank because there are no out of the box AI agents. So I'm going to go ahead and jump into my other instance where I have already defined some of these AI agents. Right, so this is my another instance. I'm going to go into the AI agents, and here I have predefined some of my agents. The first thing you will observe is that this layout is using the common grid. So you have all the functionalities of saved views, column picker, search, and ability to export to CSV. Next, you will see that this layout will have some of the similar columns as the enable AI, which is it has the name. So you can give your agent a name. The ID will be exactly in the same format, which is CC followed by a number. The type pretty much defines that which part of the Clarity application are you defining this agent for, right? So in this example, as you can see, I'm defining agents for, there are multiple agents defined for project, one for idea and two for strategic themes. So I can define multiple agents against different types. So type indicates the clarity, as we call it, the clarity object itself. Next is the context. Context indicates if I am defining the agent at the workspace level of my type or at the object level of my type. For example, this agent right here, the resource optimization and risk mitigation, is defined at the workspace level of project. That means when I go into the project grid or project board layout, any one of those layouts, but into the project workspace where I can see multiple projects in the same view, there that is the workspace. Whereas if I go inside a specific project, that's where I will see this other agent called project health check. So difference is this agent will appear in the project workspace, this one will appear in the project object. Output location basically indicates that where should the agent interaction happen. Any data that the agent sends back to you, or if you want to have any follow-up information, where should that happen? In Clarity 16.4.0, you only have the option for chat panel. So this value is always going to be populated as chat panel and you cannot change it. Next is the flag called enable. This flag indicates if a certain agent is essentially active and can be executed by those that have been given access. In my example, the investment alignment review is not enabled. That means this will not be available under the project workspace. Data sources indicates that if I am sending specific data as part of my AI agent, then this lists out all those data source names. In Clarity 16.4.0, the only data source we allow you to include is the Clarity CSV data extraction report. So you can include any CSV data extraction report, and that data, as however you have configured, will be sent as part of your the AI agent. Similar to the AI actions, we also support the ability to secure the agents, and you can define which access group, so Clarity access group, should have access to execute that agent. Now let's go ahead and create a new one just to see how the create screen looks like and what happens in terms of the configuration. When I click on new agent, the create agent modal pops up, and here I can give my agent a name. The name is important because wherever I have enabled my AI agent, the end user will see that name. So if I'm calling it ABCD, then that's exactly what the end user will see. So you want to make sure that when you're giving your agent a name, give it some reasonable naming convention so that the end user can understand what this agent is going to do. Right? So just for discussion's sake, I'm just going to call it test for now. Next, which is a required field, is the type. Again, type is any one of the Clarity object where I can essentially configure this agent for. So let's pick project, and then workspace. There are only two options, either at the project object's workspace or a specific individual project, which would be then the object. So let's just call it workspace for now. And output location is required. It cannot be changed. It is defaulted to chat panel. Once I create this, I am taken inside into the configuration screen for my AI agent. Again, here the name is configurable. So I called it test. Now I'll call it test 1, 2, 3, 4. So the name is configurable. The type, context, and output location are locked at this point. So if you made a mistake and you wanted to create this agent for a project object instead of for a project workspace, you will have to create a new agent. So these three values are locked. The prompt, there is a default prompt put in, but the prompt is a field that is available that now you can configure. This is the exact prompt that will be sent to the LLM when the agent is executed. You can give your instructions to the agent as to what specifically you want the specific agent to do. As part of the prompt, you do have the option to include specific source of information. You can, for example, include metadata. Metadata indicates which object. So if you're creating this agent for, in this case, the project, so we would then essentially allow you to send that name itself. And then you can include data source. Data source is the list of Clarity reports that are of type data extraction CSV. So only those data sources are allowed in 16.4.0. So if I go ahead and click on here, I get the list of all the defined data extraction CSV reports that are there in the system. I can pick any one of these and add it to my prompt. So just for discussion's sake, let's go ahead and add one. Let's just call investment portfolio. And that is the data report that is there. Okay, I'll show you how that report looks like in a little bit. Let's just continue on to understand the screen first, and then we will dig deeper into the prompt, and we will dig deeper into the how does the report and configuration, all of that works. So continuing on the screen, so prompt is where you can define the prompt and your data source. Next, you will see that there is the suggested follow-up prompts. This indicates that when the agent is executed, if you want to give your end user the option to either have a predefined follow-up prompts. This is standard in terms that you would have seen other chatbots out there, where if you are interacting with it, it comes up with the suggested follow-up prompts. That is basically controlling the end user's flow, or kind of recommending as to what should be happening, that when they're performing this specific AI agent, what should be the next step, or what all should be the possible next steps that you want them to be able to do. In addition, if you want to control that, should the end user even interact with that agent, meaning should the user be able to ask their own follow-up questions. That is controlled by this toggle right here, which says allow free-form input. That indicates that when the end user gets the agent response back, should they have the ability to ask their own follow-ups. The add prompt button basically allows me to specify my own follow-up prompts. When I say my own, the administrator's follow-up prompts that the end user will then see when they are executing this agent. Clicking on the add button opens up this modal where I can give my follow-up one. Again, this name is very important. The name is what the end user will see when they are interacting with the agent. And prompt is the specific instructions or the specific prompt you want to send to the LLM as a follow-up to the agent execution. All right, so again, I'm just defining some just to see how the screen works. When you do that, you will see a new row created, and in this case, you can see the name and you can see the follow-up prompt. So this is what the end user sees. This is what gets sent to the LLM. I have the option, if I didn't like it, I can just delete it right here. We also indicate that you get up to 5 follow-up prompts that you can define as an admin for your end user. Of course, if you enable the allow freeform, then the end user can have their own follow-ups that they can ask. So if I add a second one, then the second one gets created right below it, and I get a count of 2 of 5. I can delete the first one, and then it moves the one that I had second up, and the count goes from 1 of 5. All right, so that's how the agent configuration screen works. Now let's go actually look at an existing one. Before I do that, I do want to point out that by default, or the way this is designed, is that when you are defining an agent, it could take you multiple iteration, multiple steps to come up with the proper prompt that you need. So just because you went inside an agent and I defined some prompt and some follow-up prompt, we do not automatically enable the agent, because we don't want to see we do not want the end user to see an incomplete agent, and then that results in just poor experience. That means, as an administrator, once you are satisfied that this prompt and the agent configuration is good, you can go to the AI agents grid and enable that specific agent. So you have to make sure that after you're done with all your configuration to come to this grid and enable it. Otherwise, your end user will not see it. All right. So let's now look at a specific one, and I'm going to go look at this called ability and what if scenario planning. It's defined in the project type in the workspace level. The specific agent is using multiple data sources, and I can expand that to see. So the name of those specific data sources, which, as we know, the data sources are only the clarity reports that is of type data extraction CSV. So this is using multiple of those. When I go inside, again the same thing, the name is editable. I can see the type project, workspace, output, location, chat panel. I've defined my prompt, which is what I want to send to the AI agent, and I have defined saying as part of it, when you're doing the 15% budget reduction, use these different data sets. First thing you'll observe is that this field looks kind of a little small. So as what you have is the option to expand this and make it bigger. So you can now see bigger prompt. As you define complex prompts or for your AI agent, your instructions or the prompt is going to be pretty lengthy, so the ability to make this field big or small is available. The same could happen with your follow-up prompts, and that's why we've made even that field. You can expand and make it bigger, any one of these, as you choose to see additional data. At this point, if I navigate away from this screen and then come back, we will reset the size of these fields that you've expanded back to 5 lines. So by default, each one of these fields will only show you 5 lines worth of data. You can expand and make it bigger for better viewing. So let's go back out. Let's come back in again, and you can see it reset to showing me 5 lines. All right. Next, in this example, as I'm doing the analysis, I am passing 3 data sources. There is the project based on the priority, the project milestones, and my strategic theme. Actually, sorry, I'm sending 4. There is a 4th one right here. So I'm sending 4 data sources. Each one of the data sources, which is those reports, have their IDs defined. So this is the format. Anytime you add a data source, so let's just, again, reminder, to add a data source, wherever my cursor is, I can click on the add data source and I can pick one, and it adds that specific data source at that location. This syntax is very specific, so if you were to make any manual edits to this, such as removing one of those, then it'll no longer treat this as a data source and the data will not be sent. At that point, we will just send this as a string itself. So we recommend you not manually edit this data source list, or this data source that gets added using the add button. So let's delete that. Now, to see how this data source is, meaning what format is this data sent in, let's look at that by going into the actual report itself, right? So this, I am looking at report 21. So if I go into the Clarity reporting, if I go to the report designer, and I've added a column for the report IDs. So you can see this is the same name, and there is one called report 21 ID, and it's called the investment portfolio for operation. When I navigate inside this, it is configured to send the name of the project, the start finish date, the budgets, the ROI, and its dependencies and strategic theme. This is exactly how we will send the data to the LLM. So when you're defining this report, you can define whatever columns you want to send to the LLM. You can define, if you're using any TSV, you can define the period you want to use, any filter you want to apply. You can save that if you want to use your own different unit of measure. All of that is a standard configuration of a data extraction CSV report. So however you configure that report, that is how we would send that data to the LLM. Right, so I'm going to go ahead and just discard that. And there is a training module where you can see how to create a data extraction CSV report. So I'm not going to get into that. And just for reference here, because this is the report, you can see that this is of layout format data extraction CSV. We also have a column which is not added to the grid by default, but it's a column called AI agents. This will tell you that if a specific report is being used by an AI agent, then that name of the AI agent will be listed right here. So remember, I was doing the ability and the scenario planning, so that is listed right there. And similarly, all the other ones are listed right here. All right. That is the Workspace agent. If I now want to look at the object type AI agent, for that I'm going to go back into my AI agent configuration. I'm going to go into the AI agent tab, and let's go and look at this project health, which is of projects context being object. Once I navigate inside, same thing in this case, the fields, I can drag and make it look bigger. Here, I'm basically asking as a project manager to see what is the health of my project. And what I want to do is I want this AI agent to analyze my project. And this is the project data I'm sending. And I'm sending it just for my specific project. And the reason I know I'm sending just for my project is because, again, if you pay attention, the syntax is a little different. It has the report ID followed by a specific the column that needs to be mapped to the investment key itself. The other thing you'll notice is because this is of context object, I have a new button right here called Add Data Source CSV with Context. So the difference between the two buttons is the first one, Add Data Source, will add the report, which would be of data extraction CSV, and all the data that's returned in that report is sent as is to the LLM. Whereas the Add Data Source CSV with Context will essentially try to map that object's that you're running this under, that object's instance ID, which is the 5 million number, with the reports key that you're indicating, and will then filter and send just that specific object instance data to the LLM. So just to see how that works, I'm going to set another one. I'm going to say that when I'm running this, I want to include the report, and in this case I'm going to pick the report investment portfolio, and then when I click on next, it gives me the option to pick which specific column in that report should be mapped to my object instance where I am running this agent to only send that specific object instance data. I can pick investment key, and when I click on add, you can notice how that report is added. So now that reports, and it's mapped to the investment key, or using the investment key in that report where the data is added. All right. I'll go ahead and delete that, but let me show you. So number 18 is the one that is already added to my AI agent. Let's go and look at that number 18. So the number 18 report, which is the project financial analysis, and again I can see the agent, it is connected to the project health check. When I go inside here, this has a column called investment key, which has the 5 million number for my investment, and it has the other data related to the investment itself. So what will happen is that when I go into my specific project and then I run that agent, it will take the 5 million number of that object and try to map it with this investment key column, and when the matching happens, only that specific project's data will be then sent to the LLM, and I'll show you how that will execute. The other thing to observe is, as you can see, because I've added in this case TSV data, which includes about 4 different periods, and again the periods are configured as part of your report configuration, so you can define as many periods as you want to send to the LLM, and in whatever format. In this case it's just FTE, but if I had resource data I could send it in FTE or in hours, so that's all configurable. But once you define that, then we send the data. In this case also, a TSV, as you can see, there is row 1 has the TSV periods, and row 2 has the TSV values, so actual cost for September 2025 and budget for 2025, and so on and so forth for each one of those periods. When you're sending a complex data like this, you want to ensure that you give specific guidance to your LLM to understand this data clearly. That is done in your prompt itself. So now you can see how this is structured. Let's go back to the prompt, and you would now notice that in my prompt for the project health, let's make this big, I have clear instructions saying that the data structure rules that is coming from this report mapped to this key is in a specific format, that it has two header rows, and then the first column is the investment key, the second one is the name, and then the third one is transaction class, and then after that the date is on the first row, and the second row has the subheader which indicates whether it's a cost or actual cost and so on. So it's a very specific instructions that I'm telling so that LLM is able to do a better job of understanding how I'm sending the data. This is again important because you want to make sure that the LLM understands, specifically if you're using TSV type of data. The other thing I want to point out is that anytime you want the AI agent to build charts for you, you want to ensure you tell the agent to always use high charts. And the syntax for it is all right here, to just say use high charts, where high charts is all lowercase, no space in between. This will ensure, or at least give the guidance, or I should say give the instructions to the LLM to say that whenever anytime a chart is asked, make sure to use high charts library only, because if you don't use high charts library or tell the LLM to use the high charts library, then it could return in other library formats, and then we will not be able to display that data or that chart, because in Clarity we only have the license for high charts. That is why we have to ensure that the LLM that you're using will give the high chart data, and then we can convert it into an actual visualization. So that is another important point to keep in mind. All right, so we've now gone through understanding the configuration of the agent. We've gone through to understand how you would define an agent for at the workspace level using a data source, or defining it at an object level to ensure that it can filter and send the data just for that object. Now let's see the agent in action. So first let's go back in here. As you can see, I have defined agents for all these different areas, which is idea, projects, and strategic theme. So let's first go look at the strategic theme one. The strategic theme is a CIT in my instance, and I have the CIT right there. When I go inside, you can see again, I've kept the data much simpler just for ensuring I can showcase. So I'm inside my strategic theme. The AI agent is enabled for strategic theme, and the place I would see the AI agent is on the top row. So wherever you see the name of that object, if I continue and look to the extreme right, that is where my AI agent will appear. So it's in the same row at the extreme right, and this icon which says Vaia in black is my AI agent. So this is the same branding that I gave as part of my AI branding, and hovering over it has the name that I gave as part of AI branding, which is my strategic advisor. So if I did not do the AI branding, then this would be the standard star icon, and it would just say Vaia. When I click on that, I get two options. So remember, there were two agents that were defined against the strategic theme type. The name of those agents are displayed right here, and they're displayed in the order of creation. Also, the end user sees the name that you had given to your agent, which is why it was important to give the correct or a meaningful name to your AI agent. All right, so I'm going to go ahead and click on the first one. What's going to happen at this point is a panel will open up, and the data that I've defined to send to the LLM is executed. So a panel opens up to the side. The name of my AI agent is displayed on top along with the icon, and then if you have noticed, it said it was thinking, which is it was gathering the data. Then it sent that to the LLM. It was processing and waiting for the LLM to give a response back, and when the response came back, we then display that data to the panel itself. The first thing you'll observe that the data comes back, it has done the analysis based on my instructions. Now, I'm not going to go into the details of the instructions and stuff, but I just want to showcase as to how this panel works. In this case, the data came back in a table format, and it's a little bit squished. I have few buttons here on top that allows me to kind of adjust this window as I want to. I have the option to expand, which will make this window a little bigger. Right, so it expanded, and now I can read the data a little better. I can do the same by essentially dragging and making it bigger myself. Right, so now I can see all the columns and all the data provided correctly. The prompt that I had sent was to basically, for my strategic theme, look at all the investments that are there and help me find which investments are not aligned to my strategic theme, right? Hence the name, strategic alignment and value realization. So it took all these are the investments, it understood all the information, and then it comes back and tells me that this specific investment does not align. In fact, it doesn't even have a strategic theme, and it has 1.5 million that's the budget is allocated for it that I could kind of distribute somewhere else. And then it comes back and tells me in conclusion what I should do with that budget, which one is at risk of failing that I need to give some attention and reallocate the budget. So that's a quick analysis that it did. Continuing on in terms of the screen itself, I do have the option that once I understand, right? I mean, I looked at all of these different, and maybe I want to see what is this branch lobby reduction. I have two options. I can either minimize this panel, and it'll then appear at the bottom right, and it'll remain there as I navigate around. So I can go back to my projects, and I can look at the branch lobby reduction. I can go inside, look at the data, and understand what needs to be done. Maybe if I want to go back and look at it again, I can expand this, and it comes back, and I can see what it's recommending, compare it. Similarly, maybe I want to do the same thing, but I want to do it while this panel is open. And I can do that. So I can leave this panel open, and I can navigate around within Clarity, and the panel will remain in its position. Similarly, if I wanted the panel to remain open, but now it's kind of covering part of my screen, I want to be able to see all of Clarity and see the panel. To do that, I can dock this panel. So there is an option to dock. When I click on that, now this panel docks on the right side, and rest of the Clarity screen becomes available. So if I go back into my project again, I can look at and go into my project branch, and I can now again do the same analysis while this remains docked. So I have the option to dock, minimize, maximize, undock. The other thing remember, when we defined our AI agents, they were follow-up prompts that admins could define, which would help have a guided flow for the end user. Those follow-up prompts are listed right here as chips at the bottom of your panel. So in this case, I have 4 of those defined. I can click on any one of those, and that'll basically send the follow-up to my LLM. So for example, if I wanted to visualize my investment strategy, I can just click on that, and it'll then send a follow-up prompt. Again, this is the name that I had configured, and behind the scenes I had the instructions sent to it saying, build me a bar chart telling me how many investments are aligned against my strategy. Doing so, it come back. I also gave the instructions to use high charts, which is why it then gave me the data back. I can hover over it and I can see some data points. That again helps me visualize what I want to do. I can have maybe I want to see if there was a misaligned project. What do I do? I can click on that. It'll then basically interact and say, okay, well, there was one that was identified that is not aligned. It comes back and saying that you should realign that, you should kind of divest and not invest in that, and come back and use that investment for something else. If I want to ask my own question, so remember when I was configuring the AI agent, there was a toggle that tells it that should the end user be able to prompt for something. I can do that. When that is toggled on, this field is available to me to basically, as an end user, ask my own follow-up, right? So maybe I can ask, what are my resource constraints for high priority project, and I can send that, and it'll then basically do that analysis. In fact, I'm doing this for within the strategy, but maybe I want to do this for, it comes back with the resource constraints and information. But let's go look at our the other one that we were working with, which is if I go to projects, same thing. I had multiple AI agents enabled at the project level. So here, same thing, at the same level, I have those agents. Clicking on it, there were two agents that are available, and the one we were looking at, ability and what if scenario, I can run that. If I go in and I execute that, it is now performing the what if scenarios, that if I have a 15% budget cut, what do I do? It basically is sending that data, seeing what are the priorities, and it comes back specifically. These are all your projects. These are the budgets for your projects. And then, there are forecasted ROIs, low priority ones. So it essentially does that analysis, step-by-step instructions, and its recommendation. Same thing if I want to have a follow-up, right? Maybe there are more follow-ups here. How do I see if there are additional follow-ups? I can see this button is cut, but there is always this expand button that if I click on that, it will then show me all the follow-ups that have been defined by the administrator. So this way we do not take a lot of real estate, but only when the user wants to see, they can click on the expand, or they can collapse, and then it goes away. All right, so, and I can see again the same thing. What is the resource impact? Or I can have it, what should be the funding impact? Right, so I can click on that. Again, it collects the data. Each time you're doing a follow-up, it is retaining the data that is in this chat panel itself, right? So it took the previous information and it's doing the analysis. If I say, well, what about if I only fund the high priority investment, what will happen? I clicked on that. It again takes all the data from the previous two prompts, send that as along with it to kind of continue with that analysis itself, and then it comes back and it gives me more information related to what I should focus on. There is this X button which will allow me to close this window. When you do that, then all this chat interaction that you're having will then be lost. So this is a one-time interaction, as you're basically using the AI assistant to help you kind of perform your AI agent actions against your data and interacting and analysis and stuff. It's all there while this window is open. Once you close this, then that is gone, and your option would be is to kind of restart it if you want to or run another AI agent. All right. So next, let's go inside a specific project and let's look at the agent that is object specific agent. So for that, I'm going to go into my AI powered robo advisor, and same thing as I would expect. that in the same top row where I have the name of my investment on the extreme right, I have my AI agent icon. Hovering over it gives me the name of that agent, and clicking on it gives me that specific AI agent that I've defined and I have access to is then basically available to me. A point to note here that I should call out, that anytime you define an AI agent and that agent is using a data source, you have to make sure that the end user that you're giving access to run the agent also has access to that report. If you don't, then the agent, when it executes, will not be able to send the data to the AI agent or to the LLM, and hence the response is going to be limited because the LLM would not have all the data. So important to make sure that you send the or grant the access to the end user for those reports that you're including in your AI agent. All right, let's go ahead and run this one. This was the one to check the health of my project. Remember, this had the TSV data, so I'm sending the multiple actuals and cost information, and it comes back. I don't have any actuals at this point, but all my the budget information is shown in the bar chart, and that's kind of what I had asked in terms of just show me the data in terms of bar chart. I can do a follow-up maybe to say, write a short summary of the project status. It'll then basically take the same set of data and it provides me a short summary in terms of where is the financial overview of this, and there, no actual cost has been recorded thus far, and monitoring it, it seems that the project is fine because there's no actual spend against it. Notice that this does not have any follow-ups chips in here, because if you remember, when I was defining the agent, there was no follow-up prompts defined in the agent, but I did toggle on this ability for the user to kind of interact by themselves. That's why I have this chat box. All right. The last thing I want to show is the AI models that I can configure. Those AI models. Actually, before that, let me show you one more thing, which is I'm going to go back into my projects and I'm going to run the same what if scenario. And let me also show you how, if the end user wanted a specific type of chart that they wanted to create, kind of what prompt could they use. So I want to at least show that syntax, which is, so I've run this what if analysis. This is where I send all my project along with their financial information. And maybe what I want to do is I want this agent to build a pie chart. Remember, it is important to let the agent know using high charts. This is the key part of the syntax, because you want the agent to return the LLM to return using high chart syntax only. So I want to build a pie chart using high charts for total actuals, actual cost by all right. So I want the agent to build me a pie chart where I can see or visualize what is my actual spend or the actual cost based on the strategic themes that are there. Right, so let's go ahead and send that. Again, the same thing. It's collecting all the data that's already part of this AI agent. It's taking that information along with my new instructions, and it comes back and tells me that bulk of my investment is in the strengthened cyber and regulatory. Right, so that's the one where bulk of my investments is going 50% versus all the other ones. So again, hovering over, I can see and kind of analyze my data further as I want to. So you can build different types of charts just by having the agent to kind of pull that information and show it. And yes, you can see it's 50% because there are two specific projects, one for 10 million, the other one for 14 million. That is about 50% of my budget investment. Sorry, my actual cost that I have so far, because I asked for the actual cost. All right, the last one that I wanted to show is the responses that you are seeing. The quality of the response and how enriched that response totally depends on the LLM that you are using. So far, if I go back into my administration and I go into my AI models, I've been giving the demo using Copilot, and I've configured the standard Copilot against my instance. If I change this to say now for all my future prompts, instead of using Copilot, use Gemini's Gemini Pro 2.5 with a higher token value for response. Keep in mind that the Gemini 2.5 Pro is an advanced model with advanced thinking capability. So in that case, the response is going to be of a higher quality, and it'll take time for the response to come back because it takes more time to analyze the information. So let's do the same. I'm going to go back into my strategic theme. And if you remember the first time when I ran this, it gave me the response in just text, and at the end it had a conclusion. Now I'm going to go back and run exactly the same, the strategic alignment and value realization. This will take some time. At this point, because it is using the Gemini 2.5 Pro, it's the 2.5 Pro with the advanced thinking capability takes the data. So us gathering the data, sending it to the LLM is the same. But once it reaches the Gemini 2.5 Pro, it takes longer time for it to analyze that information. And then it brings it back and it shows that data in much more enriched format. So you can see there is different colored icons. It tells me information as to 85% of these projects are aligned. It has an icon for which one is not aligned. So it's a much higher enriched response versus the other LLM. So I executed exactly the same agent, but just changing the LLM can change the type of response, and that is kind of a critical factor of how the AI agents, how good the response can be. It depends on the model that you select. All right, and same thing I could have done with Gemini 2.5 Flash, which would not be as deep thinking. The response would not be as enriched. So again, we give you the flexibility and you the control as to how you want to use the AI agents within Clarity. All right, I'm going to go ahead and close that, and that concludes my demo for Vaia enhancements as part of Clarity 16.4.0. And that concludes the training module for enhancements to Vaia as part of Clarity 16.4.0. Thank you everyone for listening to this training module, and I will see you in the next section. Bye.